So when you guys think of North Dakota, what do you think of? I know everybody knows there's no population in North Dakota. You probably think of rolling plains and ghost towns, small towns. You know, basically, North Dakota doesn't have much of a population and it doesn't have too many murderers or serial killers in comparison to other states. However, one of the first serial killers was named Eugene Butler. He was born in 1849. Um, he actually was, not a local. He moved to North Dakota from out of state. Eugene ended up earning a few other names, such as the Midnight Rider and the Great Plains Butcher. So Eugene Butler was originally from Buffalo, New York. He moved to North Dakota in 1882. Basically, he bought a 480-acre farm at that time, and he maintained it himself. He was never married, and he lived as a recluse. Kind of strange man, people thought initially, and I guess he only got stranger in regard to his behavior. As far as people being out on the farm or having anything to do with it, he really only hired some farm hands to work in the summertime. So from 1882 to the early 1900s, Eugene Butler didn't leave his farm very often. He would only go to the town of Larimore once in a while for supplies. Um, basically, he would ride his horse starting in 1906. He started riding his horse into the small town of Niagara. He was on a farm outside of town a few miles, so he would ride his horse into town, naked apparently, yelling and screaming crazy gibberish. So that's where he gained the name the Midnight Rider. From there, and I don't know if Greg Allman's song or the Allman Brothers wrote their song The Midnight Rider based on this, or so basically, that's where he gained his first nickname. In 1906, he was actually admitted to a mental hospital for this behavior. He had kind of become a nuisance, and he was raising some heck with that type of behavior. So he was admitted in about 1906, in his early 40s. So despite Eugene Butler being basically a wealthy landowner, his property was high value at the time in the early 1900s for that area. He was committed because he was having hallucinations and he was seeing invisible figures. He thought they were after him. He was afraid to have his picture taken because he thought it would suck the soul out of his body, similar to what Native Americans believe. So he had all these crazy beliefs, and from 1906 to 1913, he remained at the mental facility. He didn't display any violent tendencies or didn't seem like he had anything like a serial killer or murderer would show for types of behavior or tendencies of this type of a person. So after Eugene's death, his family inherited his property, and 2 years later they were going to renovate the property and they were digging a cellar out along the foundation. Upon digging, they actually found human remains. So they found 5 different skeletons under Eugene's house next to it. And from what I understand, he had built this house, so they must be from him, right? So they initially thought it was a family consisting of 2 women. It looks like they thought they were housekeepers and farmhands potentially. They all had their skull crushed. They 2 of them had broken legs even. So they're not sure if he lured them there as seasonal workers and then killed them to avoid paying. The theories are really up in the air because he was so reclusive and nobody lived with him, and now he's dead. There was really no answers. So after the police investigated, they found that all of these skeletons belonged to young men. One of the boys was aged, estimated 15 to 18. They said one had a crooked nose. No clothes were found for these young men. They assume he removed the clothing and burned it. So Butler had a trap door on the side of his house. He removed 3 stones from the foundation and dug down and basically would drop the bodies down in that hole to hide them. So one of the victims may have later been identified. It sounds still a little bit unclear, but basically a wealthy man from Long Prairie, Minnesota, said his brother went missing. His brother went by John Miller, and he had sent a postcard from Larimore to his brother stating that he was working as a farmhand for a bachelor in the area. One of the difficulties in identifying if this was his brother was the fact that the bones actually went missing. I don't know how they went missing, but they disappeared somehow from police evidence. They had said a bunch of people were coming to the farm to check things out after they heard about the murders, and they said something about treasure hunters taking them, but you would assume the police would have collected the evidence immediately and secured it. So I'm not sure exactly where they went, but with there being no bones, it would be very hard to definitively identify whether or not this was Leo Urbinski or John Miller, his alias. So because the bones are missing, in 2016, Grand Forks County Sheriff's Department reached out to the public in an effort to try to recover the missing bones, because with our DNA technology, we could potentially identify who these people were. So they were hoping whoever took them would potentially come forward with them, so the victims' families could get some closure, even though this is, well over 100 years ago. But either way, it's good on the Grand Forks Police Department to try and follow through and figure out who these people were that were in the cellar of Eugene Butler in Niagara, North Dakota. Thank you for coming along, guys. I appreciate it. I hope you found this interesting. We have a bunch more interesting content like this to come, so please like and subscribe.